Have you ever paused and asked yourself, am I truly living? Or just moving through the motions of someone else's expectations? Do your days feel purposeful? Or are you constantly chasing, comparing, regretting, and delaying? What if I told you that the answers you're seeking aren't out there in the world, but deep within your own mind? Today, we dive into the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy, not as dusty ancient theory, but as a map for reclaiming the most valuable currency you possess, your time. If you're tired of feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or misaligned with your own values, this video is your wake-up call. Make sure to subscribe if you're serious about becoming the author of your life, not just a character in someone else's script. 1. The illusion of control. Let go to regain power. Imagine spending your entire life climbing a mountain, only to realize when you reach the top, you climbed the wrong one. This isn't just a metaphor, it's the lived experience of millions who wake up in midlife with success on paper, but emptiness in their soul. They've done everything right by society's standards, only to discover that those standards were never their own. The tragedy isn't that they failed, it's that they succeeded at something that didn't matter. This is the story of Scott, a CEO who had the world's applause but none of his own peace. He had built a thriving company, owned several properties, and was the keynote speaker at prestigious events. People envied his life. But in the quiet moments, after the handshakes and boardroom wins, he felt hollow. He couldn't sleep. His mind never stopped racing. He had everything, yet nothing felt meaningful. What he lacked wasn't achievement, it was alignment. He had confused control with power, and now he was paying the price. Stoic wisdom, especially from Marcus Aurelius, reminds us that the only thing we ever truly control is our own mind, our judgments, our choices, our responses. The external world will do what it does. Circumstances shift, people change, fortunes rise and fall. The only constant is our ability to govern ourselves. The more we seek to control outcomes, people, or perceptions, the more we set ourselves up for suffering. True power isn't about control over others, it's about discipline within. When we pour our energy into controlling the uncontrollable, other people's opinions, market trends, societal standards, we surrender the inner serenity we were born to protect. It's like chasing the wind and wondering why your hands come up empty. The more attached we become to things beyond our influence, the more unstable our inner life becomes. This is why anxiety festers, why stress grows, why joy slips away. We are trying to play a game we can never win. Instead, redirect your focus inward. Seek mastery of your thoughts, your habits, your actions. This is where real power begins. You can't stop the storm, but you can become still within it. You can't force people to love or approve of you, but you can love yourself deeply and live with integrity. When you let go of the illusion of control, you regain something far greater: freedom, peace, clarity. The mountain worth climbing isn't out there, it's inside you. 2. The trap of comparison and the death of authenticity. Every scroll through social media is a silent negotiation with your self-worth. You see smiles that don't show the pain behind them, achievements that skip the failures, and lifestyles that are often more fantasy than fact. Without noticing, you start to audit your life against these curated images. Are you successful enough? Fit enough? Happy enough? Suddenly, the quiet confidence you once held is overshadowed by invisible expectations you never agreed to. You see curated lives, filtered success, and polished perfection, and without realizing it, you begin to question your own path. It's not that your life changed, but your perception did. What once felt fulfilling now seems inadequate. Your victories seem small. Your progress seems slow. You begin to chase what others display, not because you need it, but because comparison has planted the seed of doubt. Comparison is the thief of joy, but more dangerously, It is the assassin of authenticity. It doesn't just make you feel lesser, it tempts you to become someone else, to shape your life around applause rather than purpose, to say what will be liked instead of what is true. Authenticity dies not in one moment, but in 1,000 small concessions made in the name of fitting in. And once it's gone, your identity becomes a mask you wear instead of a truth you live. Stoicism teaches us to detach from external metrics of success and root ourselves in internal values. What matters is not how others live, but whether you're living your truth. You're not obligated to follow someone else's timeline, lifestyle, or definition of happiness. Your only task is to live in alignment with your nature, with honesty, courage, and virtue. That is success. That is freedom. Gratitude, self-reflection, and personal accountability are the antidotes. A journal is more powerful than a feed. Write your values, live your values, measure your life by them. When you feel lost in the noise, return to your inner compass. Ask yourself, not what looks good, but what feels right. Celebrate your small wins. Learn from your failures. The moment you stop performing and start being, you reclaim your power. You become real again, and real is rare. 3. Time slips through fingers, the cost of delay. Most people don't waste time intentionally. They waste it passively, by fearing failure, procrastinating, and waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Time isn't always stolen, it's often surrendered. Day by day, we exchange our potential for distractions, our focus for comfort, our dreams for delays. We tell ourselves we'll begin tomorrow, next week, or when we feel ready, but tomorrow is a promise we're never guaranteed. Luke, an aspiring writer, had talent, but he waited for inspiration, for confidence, for certainty. Years passed. His dream withered. He told himself stories about being too busy, too tired, or not in the right headspace. But deep down, he was afraid. Afraid that his words wouldn't be good enough. Afraid that he would fail. The blank page became a mirror he avoided. Eventually, his passion became a regret, a haunting reminder of what could have been. Fear is a subtle thief. It convinces you to stay comfortable. But what feels safe today can become your prison tomorrow. The more you avoid discomfort, the more it defines you. Dreams die, not only from failure, but from neglect, from the slow erosion of time wasted on indecision and doubt. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to be ruled by it. You don't have to be fearless. To begin, you just have to begin in spite of fear. Amor fati, the Stoic idea of loving fate, means embracing every part of your journey, including the struggle, the failure, the rejection. It means seeing every obstacle as part of your path, not a detour from it. The hardships you fear are often the very tools that will shape your strength. The setbacks are lessons. The delays are teachers. Nothing is wasted if you choose to learn and move forward. You don't need perfect conditions. You need courage. Take the smallest step today. Action creates clarity. Delay creates regret. Your purpose isn't something you discover. It's something you build, brick by brick, word by word, day by day. Every moment you act with intention, you write your legacy. So don't wait. Don't overthink. Live deliberately. The time you have is precious and it's already slipping through your fingers. 4. Drift or design. The power of clear direction. Life without direction is like sailing with no compass. You might stay afloat, but you'll never reach shore. Many people go through life reacting rather than designing. They wake up, go to work, respond to emails, eat meals, scroll through social media, and collapse into bed, only to repeat the process the next day. But motion does not equal progress. Without a clear direction, even the most productive person can find themselves lost. Like a ship adrift on open waters, their energy is spent merely staying afloat, not in moving toward any meaningful destination. This is where so many of us get trapped, in a cycle of activity without purpose. It may feel like we're accomplishing things, but without a compass we end up nowhere. And worse, we don't even realize it until months or years have passed, and we wonder why we feel so empty. When you lack clear goals, you become reactive, chasing trends, people's approval, or mindless routines. This reactive mode of living is dangerous because it gives away your power. When you're not rooted in something meaningful, you become vulnerable to the noise of the world. Someone else's ambition becomes your distraction. The fear of missing out replaces clarity. You follow what others are doing, not because it aligns with your values, but because you haven't defined your own. This is why so many people fall prey to shallow validation. Approval on social media, status symbols, or fleeting popularity becomes their North Star. But these things are illusions. They never satisfy for long, and they often lead us further from what truly matters. When you don't know what you're building, you end up building someone else's dream instead. Epictetus urged us to ask, 2. What purpose am I acting? Chris Gardner, whose story inspired the pursuit of happiness, lived this truth. Homeless, struggling, but anchored by a purpose larger than his pain. This question, to what purpose am I acting, is a lifeline. It interrupts the automatic behaviors we default to and forces us to think deliberately. Consider Chris Gardner. In the darkest period of his life, when he was homeless and caring for his young son, he didn't drift into despair. He held on to a sense of mission. He visualized a better future and committed to actions that aligned with it, no matter how difficult. Purpose doesn't erase struggle, but it transforms it. When your actions serve something bigger than comfort or survival, they become powerful. Gardner's story reminds us that even in chaos, we can live with direction. That's what Stoicism is about. Clarity in the face of adversity. Purpose doesn't appear. It is constructed. Clarify your values, set your goals, act with intention. People often wait for purpose to strike them, like a bolt of inspiration. But purpose isn't something you discover, it's something you build. It starts by asking hard questions. What do I value? What kind of person do I want to become? What matters more than temporary pleasure? Once those answers begin to take shape, your path becomes clearer. From there, you set goals, not just external ones like earning more or getting fit, but internal goals like becoming more disciplined, more patient, or more courageous. Every choice you make either builds this purpose or distracts from it. When you live with intention, you stop waiting for meaning, you create it. You can't control every outcome, but you can live every day with meaning when you choose your direction deliberately. Life will always contain uncertainty. Accidents happen, people betray, circumstances shift. But the Stoic insight is this: you don't need to control the waves, you need to steer the ship. Your job is not to predict the future, but to commit to your direction. Every day becomes meaningful when it is lived in alignment with your principles. Even failure becomes valuable if it taught you something or strengthened your resolve. So stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Choose your direction. Choose it again tomorrow, and again the day after. That is how great lives are built. Not by drifting into greatness, but by designing a path and walking it with discipline. 5. The mirror of the mind. Why self-reflection changes everything. The person you lie to most is yourself. We rarely want to admit this, but it's true. Self-deception is a defense mechanism we all use, often unconsciously, to avoid discomfort. We convince ourselves that we're doing okay, that our motives are pure, or that our bad habits aren't that bad. It's easier to project confidence than to confront weakness. But these lies don't protect us. They imprison us. They prevent growth because they distort reality. Until we're willing to tell ourselves the truth, we remain stuck, unable to evolve. The hardest lies to confront aren't the ones others tell us. They're the ones we repeat internally, quietly every day. When we avoid reflection, we drift. We operate on autopilot. We make choices not based on values, but habits, emotions, or fears. Without self-reflection, we become passengers in our own lives. Habits take over. Emotional reactions guide our decisions. We lash out in anger, not because the situation demands it, but because we haven't paused to understand ourselves. Fear keeps us silent, not because the risk is real, but because we've never examined its grip on us. In this state, we don't choose how to live. We inherit our life from yesterday's patterns, and those patterns, if unexamined, often come from pain, trauma, or social conditioning. The only way to break free is to slow down and look inward. Marcus Aurelius reflected every night, not to judge himself but to realign, to check if he lived with integrity, courage, and discipline. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful emperors and deepest thinkers, made time for reflection despite the weight of his responsibilities. He didn't do it to punish himself or dwell on mistakes. He did it to course correct, to ask, did I live today as the man I want to be? Did I respond with calm? Was I honest? This nightly ritual wasn't about perfection. It was about progress. Through reflection, Marcus maintained his principles in a chaotic world. If a man ruling an empire can make time to reflect, so can we. And we must, because it is in that mirror that we find who we truly are. Reflection isn't passive. It's an act of rebellion against unconscious living. To sit quietly with your thoughts, to examine your motives and choices, is not weakness, it's strength. In a culture obsessed with constant motion and distraction, reflection is radical. It says, I won't just do, I will understand. It breaks the spell of reaction and reclaims your agency. Reflection is how you interrupt destructive cycles. It's how you learn from your day instead of running from it, and it's how you evolve, not by accident, but by design. When you reflect, you begin to live with eyes open, and with that awareness comes power. Ask yourself, where did I act out of fear today? What am I avoiding? What did I learn about myself? These aren't easy questions, but they are necessary. They cut through the noise and touch the heart of your behavior. Maybe you stayed silent in a meeting because you feared judgment. Maybe you avoided a tough conversation because you feared rejection. These moments matter. They reveal where growth is waiting. When you bring them into awareness, you can begin to act differently. You can take small, bold steps toward becoming someone braver, wiser, or more honest. But none of that. Change is possible without asking the right questions and having the courage to answer them truthfully. Through honest reflection, you grow. You correct. You rise. Reflection is not just about seeing the truth. It's about acting on it. Once you acknowledge where you've stumbled, you have the power to walk differently. Each night becomes an opportunity, not for shame, but for refinement. You shift your habits, you reshape your mind, and in doing so, you become someone more aligned with your deepest values. The person you want to be is not found in grand declarations, but in small daily course corrections born from reflection. That's how you rise, quietly, consistently, and from within. And only then can you embrace change, not as a threat, but as a tool for transformation. Most people fear change because it threatens their comfort zones. But when you practice self-reflection, change no longer feels like an enemy. It becomes a companion. You welcome it because you understand its role in growth. You stop clinging to the past because you've learned to see the present clearly. You adapt not to survive, but to thrive. This is the Stoic path: clarity, responsibility, transformation. It begins not with the world changing, but with you looking inward, facing what's there and choosing to grow. Before time runs out, choose a Stoic life. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't live, they wait. They wait for motivation, for permission, for the right moment. And then, life slips by in silence. Stoicism calls us to wake up, to master our minds, to own our values, to act with urgency. Stop chasing what you can't control. Stop comparing your life to a lie. Stop waiting to feel ready. Instead, reflect, act, grow, and above all, live. Because your time is not guaranteed, but your choices are. Subscribe if you're ready to reclaim your life with clarity, courage, and conviction. The Stoic path awaits.